Hello, this is Jill Shook, and we're just thrilled to bring to you our third orientation for our Greater Pasadena Affordable Housing Group, which is under the nonprofit called Making Housing and Community Happen. And so I'm the executive director of that organization, and I'm here with Morgan. And so I'm thrilled to have our staff person, Morgan, who is my office assistant, with us. I'll be asking her a few questions, but I'm sure you also will have many questions as you go through. So love to hear your questions. So I'm going to get started and share the PowerPoint. Here we are. Get this from the beginning. Slideshow from beginning. There we go. Okay. So what is affordable housing? In the other orientations, we didn't talk too much about this. What kinds of affordable housing exist in Pasadena? It's actually pretty significant. And how often, how does it happen? How do we get affordable housing to happen in our city or any city? And then to whom do we advocate to get it passed? So hopefully those questions will be answered by the end of this video. So what is affordable housing? So the government defines affordable housing in two categories, home ownership and rental. So for home ownership, they say that you should be spending no more than 40% of your income on housing costs. And that includes the PITI, the principal, interest, taxes, and home insurance. So in my book called Making Housing Happen, Faith-Based Affordable Housing Models, there's a chapter about the Nehemiah homes in New York. And they made sure that all of the homeowners involved in the, they built 1,000 units just in Bronx in one part. This was church. 30 churches that came together to do this. But they made sure that every homeowner qualified with just 20% of their income. Can you imagine? I mean, that way there was just never any foreclosures because it was based on only 20% of their income, and that gave them plenty of income still to live on. But the other way that affordable housing is defined is through rental. So that's spending no more than 30% of your income on housing. So there's an example here. So if you have a salary of $25,000 a year, and then a third of that income comes to $7,500 or $625 a month.
Right.
So you include the utility, and that might come to $75 a month. And that means that you would be paying $550 per month, and that for someone who earns $25,000 a year. So most of us spend much more than that, but if you're in true affordable housing, this is really how it works, so that you're able to live within your means. So next slide, the income levels. So there's not just one income level with affordable housing. We're looking at moderate, low income, very low, and extremely low income. So there's all different income levels that affordable housing can be depending on the funding source. And so these income bands help the government to define affordable housing, the need within the community. So if you go to the census of any city in our country, it will tell you exactly what the income level is of different people in that community, and you'll know what the need is then for affordable housing. And it also, by having these income bands, it helps funders determine what level of subsidies are needed for the various income bands. So the income levels, they're all based on what's called the AMI, the Area Median Income. So the way the area median income is determined is based on, you put all of the income levels in an entire city, if you put them all on a big long page, and you find the one in the middle. That's the median, not the average, but the median, right. So one in the middle. And it's this particular slide is all based on what's the maximum allowed for a 4-person household. So it's going to change depending on if it's a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5-person household and so forth. So that you get just kind of quick and dirty idea here of what the income level would be for moderate. 77,000, for low, 68,000, for very low, 42, and then extremely low, 25. So I was really surprised when I learned this, because I know me and my husband actually fit into that very low income category, not the very extremely low, but the very low income. So Morgan, have you thought much about what income level you and your husband would be at?
Yeah, well, my husband and I would actually, based on this chart, probably be in the extremely low income category. So
are you asking me for a raise?
A subtle hint. Just kidding. No, we're doing well.
Okay, so if we give Morgan a raise, it means we need to raise more money. So that's our little fun right now in this video. So so the housing element is a really interesting state policy, and that's basically a requirement that every city in the state of California has to plan for sufficient housing for all income levels. And they have to turn in this big, thick report that shows how they've actually planned in their city to make it possible for all different income levels to live, to be considered, in their planning. And so if you look here at the very low income level, and that's, Morgan, what you just said, that you're in that level. So the state, or actually it's not the state, it's a group called SCAG, the Southern California Association of Governments. So they've been given the charge to tell all of the Southern California cities how much affordable housing they should plan for. And so you see the number there, 340 units, and that's for the city of Pasadena. But you look to the next little column, and you can see there that the number of building permits issued for that very low income category is only 149. So the remaining RHNA numbers, Regional Housing Needs Assessment, is 191. And that's pretty significant, because you can look up and you can see the dates. So the dates for this particular housing element implementation is anywhere from 2014 to 2021. So it's about an 8-year period in there, and we're really close to ending that period, and they still have 191 units to go. But then if you drop down and you look at the low income, so we've been allocated, when I say we, I mean the city of Pasadena, allocated 207 units for this cycle. And we've only issued 38 permits for that income level. That leaves us 169 in the next year that we have to produce. That's really significant. Then the moderate income, even that is interesting. 224 units are also what's been allocated, and only 45 permits pulled for that, with 179 left to go. So what you might notice is missing on this slide, if I go back to this slide, see at the bottom it says extremely low. Well, on this slide, doesn't exist. So they don't even require an allocation for the income level that Morgan lives in. So there's some folks working on state policy and trying to get an allocation also for that income level. But I'm sure that you can go back to this video and review it. You can look up RHNA and try to learn more about it. But it's a pretty important policy for us as advocates in trying to get the city to really finish out all the remaining RHNA within the time frame allocated. That's 539 units that we should be trying to get permits pulled for in the next year or so. This gives you an idea. This is the city of Pasadena. It's kind of an interesting shape. But it shows where affordable housing is throughout the city. And a lot of times say it's all in Northwest. Well, we do have a lot because we need it in Northwest. There's absolutely a need. Historically, the lower income folks live in the Northwest part here where I'm throwing my cursor in circles. But you can see it's really allocated throughout the eastern part of the city as well, or especially the central part. So we need more affordable housing clear over here to the way eastern part of the city, and also in this section more toward the Rose Bowl. So I happen to know where you live, Morgan, and you live in a beautiful home not far from District 6, but you're right here in District 1.
Right.
So, is there a lot of affordable housing in your area?
Well, yeah, as I was mentioning to you earlier, I wouldn't say so. I mean, I live on a little street, but then it's pretty modest homes, smaller homes. But then you go one street over, and there are these huge mansions.
Yeah.
So yeah, the story of how my parents were able to afford the home we live in is a very interesting one. And if you'd like to read it, it's actually on makinghousinghhappen.net. My housing story. So if you have time, go ahead and give it a read, and you'll learn a little bit more about me and my family and how we came to afford our home.
And I hope you guys all read this that are watching this video, because it really is an amazing story. And Morgan is an excellent writer. So take a peek at that, please, and read it. So they have a little quiz here. And so number 1, true or false, RHNA, the Regional Housing Needs Assessment, which is the number of units allocated for each city in California to plan for, but not necessarily build. What do you think, Morgan? Is that true or false?
It's true, and those numbers were very interesting. You know, the numbers that were allocated to plan for, but the, deficit of what hasn't been built, it was really, really interesting to see that.
Really interesting. So number 2, true or false, the government considers your apartment affordable if you're spending no more than 30% of your income on their total housing needs, including utilities. What do you think? Is that true or false?
Yeah, again, true, but then again, how many of us actually live that out? Most of us are paying way more than 30%.
30%, Yeah, there's been a lot of discussion on this at the national level, but at this point, it's still 30%. We know, me and my husband Anthony know people that are actually spending up to 90% of their income.
Wow.
You've got folks, especially seniors that are fixed income, that don't have the opportunity really to increase their income, and yet their housing cost has gone through the roof. Even up to $1,000 a month increase. So they truly cannot live indoors anymore, and they're being pushed to the streets. The fastest growing population of those experiencing homelessness are seniors, which is just tragic. So there are things we can do about this. We need some strong rent control policies, but our group is primarily looking at affordable housing and how to create more of that. Rent control doesn't necessarily address those at the very low income levels. It just stabilizes the rents. Number 3, true or false, homeowners should spend no more than 40% of their income on their mortgage, plus property tax, utilities, etc. What do you think, Morgan?
Well, we were talking about this earlier, and at first I had said true, but then you were pointing out the property tax may make this actually false. So yeah, I think we had settled on false.
Yeah, because all those things need to be included in the 40%. Yeah. So yeah. So number 4, true or false, the mayor and the city staff all need affordable housing.
Well, yeah, I mean, everybody should be able to afford the home that they live in. It should be affordable. Yeah,
that's true. What's interesting is that I bought this house that I'm in for $143.50 in 1994, And that's really, 143,000 is really low.
Yeah.
And it's now worth well over 800,000. And there's no way I could buy the house I live in. And I know many people that cannot afford the very home that they purchased years ago. So I would imagine for those people on our city council and city staff, that if they were like me and bought a house years ago, you know, that house is very affordable, but if they had to buy it again, it wouldn't be, you know.
Right.
And but I think there's a whole lot of staff that are living outside of our city because they can't afford it. I think it'd be great if we had someone on our team that could research that and give us an idea of our city staff and where they live, and if it's because of affordability, if that's what's kept them from living here.